Thank you, my friends. The sun may have set over our city this evening, but as Eugene Debs once said, I can see the dawn of a better day for humanity. For as long as we can remember, the working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands. Fingers bruised from lifting boxes on the warehouse floor, palms calloused from delivery.
What's up, YouTube? It's JonE America again, and we gotta talk about Zohran Mamdani. I tried to avoid this topic. So this is about Zohran Mamdani, and you've seen the thumbnail, and it's why women love his dangerous ideas, right? Okay, so I just want to say a couple weeks ago, something crazy happened in New York City that should be waking everybody up. Zohran Mamdani became the mayor. But here's the crazy thing. 82% of young women aged 18 to 29 voted for him. 82%. That's insane. Now, you might be thinking, JonE, why would so many young women vote for this guy? And I'm like, I don't know. Well, he promised them lots of free stuff. Like lots of free stuff. Free buses, free childcare, rent control, higher wages. On paper, these promises sound amazing, especially to young women who are struggling with money. The times have changed quite a bit. It used to be that women and men depended on each other in a family situation, but now women depend on men from a government standpoint. They call it daddy government. Daddy government is what women depend on. We saw this with SNAP. We saw all of the people complaining about SNAP. Turns out 90% of the people complaining were women because they've been dependent on this whole time. And as a man, you're like, whoa, y'all been getting food stamps this whole time? Like, y'all cheating the game. We thought y'all was strong and independent. What happened? So today I'm going to show you exactly what Mamdani wants to do, why it sounds so good to young women, and why those promises will actually destroy their lives in the long run. Just like they destroyed the lives of people in Venezuela, the Soviet Union, Cambodia, and North Korea. And I got receipts today too. So let's kick it for a minute. Section 1, why young women voted for him. Now let me tell you why young women love Mamdani's campaign. First, he promised free city buses. That means no more paying $2.90 every time you get on the bus. For someone who takes the bus to work or to school or to class every day, that adds up to real money. Second, he promised free childcare. We're talking about kids from 6 weeks old to 5 years old, completely free. I don't know if he's ever going to get this done, but that's his promise. For young single mothers, childcare can cost between $1,500 to $3,000 per month, which is crazy, by the way. Free healthcare will save a young woman thousands of dollars. So the women were all for that, of course. Third, he promised to freeze rent prices. Right now, rent in New York is through the roof. Young women are spending more than half of their paycheck just on rent. Mamdani said, I'm going to stop your rent from going up. I don't know if he'll be able to pull that off, but the crowd loved it. Fourth, he promised to raise the minimum wage to $30 by 2030. That's almost double what it is now, which is insane. That always causes problems that everybody that's short-sighted always misses, but whatever. And finally, he promised to open city-owned grocery stores where the prices will be super cheap. That just is giving me like food lines and like bread lines and Hunger Games and all that energy, but we'll see what happens. Now, here's why this appeals to young women specifically. Young women are dealing with what's called a double bind. They want to have careers, but they also want to have families. They're trying to pay for childcare, housing, food, and everything else on salaries that haven't gone up as fast as the prices have. Mamdani's promises spoke directly to these problems. He said, I see your struggles and I have solutions. Whether they work or not, we'll find out. Section 2, what happened in Venezuela? But here's what young women in Venezuela learned the hard way, and really just young people in general. When politicians promise free stuff, it always sounds amazing until it starts. Venezuela used to be rich, just like America is rich, which America ain't even rich anymore, by the way. They had lots of oil, so everyone had good jobs and could buy nice things. Then Hugo Chavez got elected. Sound familiar? He promised free healthcare, free education, free everything, just like Mamdani did. Young Venezuelan women and people in general loved Chavez at first. He said the government will take care of all your problems. You'll never have to worry about money again. And when that happens, just get ready for the worst case scenario. Now, at first it seemed to work. The government gave out free food, free medicine, free schools. Young women could focus on their families instead of worrying about bills. But then Chavez started taking over everything. Private businesses, farms, factories. He said, the government can run these a lot better than the private companies, so I'm just going to take over. Within 15 years, Venezuela went from being one of the richest countries in South America to one of the poorest. Young women who had jobs suddenly found themselves without work. Why? Because when the government owns all the businesses, they don't need to hire efficiently. They can just hire their friends and family, whether they're good workers and know what they're doing or not. They'll say, you're over this business, you're over this business. The grocery stores became empty because nobody wanted to stock them. The hospitals ran out of medicine because nobody wanted to make any. The schools had no books because nobody wanted to print them because you wasn't making no money printing it. When you take away people's ability to make money, you'll take away the ability and the need for people to create more things. By 2019, 90% of young Venezuelan women were now living in poverty. They couldn't afford food, medicine, or basic necessities. Many had to leave their children with grandparents just to move to other countries to find work. The free healthcare became irrelevant because there was no food to put in children's mouths. And more than anything, the inflation rate rose so crazy that they say you could have a room full of money, of Venezuelan money, stacked from floor to ceiling like a bedroom-sized room, and it was like the equivalent of $1,000 US because inflation went crazy. Section 3, the Soviet Union, the biggest failure, okay? But Venezuela is nothing compared to the Soviet Union. This was the ultimate test of what Mamdani wants to do, and it failed spectacularly. The Soviet Union lasted 74 years, from 1917 to 1991. During that time, about 100 million people died because the government controlled everything. Young Soviet women were promised everything Mamdani promises: free housing, free healthcare, free childcare, guaranteed jobs, blah, 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 blah. And the government did provide these things. Everyone had jobs. Everyone had apartments. Everyone had access to healthcare. But here's what happened. Because the government owned everything, nobody had a reason to work hard. And that's a problem that we don't want to experience in this country. The fact that this country is built on people working hard, it will fail dramatically if everybody just gets the basics. Like, I work super hard. I'm working here on a Saturday. I'm on my break making this video. Like, I'm trying to aspire to bigger things because that's how you make money. And if people stop aspiring, the whole thing will just fall to pieces. Okay. It's like, why get up early to be productive if you're getting the same salary as somebody who's laying in bed being lazy all day? Why come up with new ideas if the government just takes them and gives you nothing in return? Soviet women found themselves living in tiny apartments with no privacy, eating terrible food that nobody cared about making well, and waiting in lines for hours to buy basic necessities. The free childcare turned into poorly supervised daycare centers where children didn't get much attention because the workers had no incentive to do good work. The guaranteed jobs turned into meaningless work that nobody wanted to do, but everyone had to do because the government said so. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, young women were so relieved that they cried tears of joy. They had suffered for 74 years under the illusion that free stuff from the government was better than earning their own money and making their own choices. Section 4, Cambodia, the killing fields. But the most horrifying example is Cambodia. This will make you understand why Mamdani's ideas are so dangerous. In 1975, Pol Pot took over Cambodia. He was a communist who promised young women equality and prosperity. Pol Pot's first promise was to eliminate inequality. He said, everyone will be equal. Rich people won't exist anymore. Everyone will have the same amount of everything. Sounds good to people that are underachievers, okay? Doesn't sound good to me. Young Cambodian women loved this idea. They were tired of seeing rich people with nice houses while they lived in poverty. So Pol Pot made everyone give up their private property. Wow. He said, now everyone shares everything equally. But here's what really happened. Instead of everyone being equal, everyone became equally poor. Instead of some people having more than others, nobody had anything. Pol Pot also decided that educated people were enemies of equality. He started murking teachers, doctors, and anyone who seemed too smart. Young women who had gone to college or learned skills were considered dangerous. He even banned money completely. People had to trade vegetables for clothing and rice for medicine. It was chaos. The result? Cambodia lost 25% of its population. Young mothers watched their children starve because the agricultural system collapsed. The free childcare became irrelevant because there was no food system to support it. Pol Pot's communist government lasted only 4 years, but in that time, young Cambodian women learned that forcing everyone to be equal actually made everyone miserable. Section 5, North Korea, the current nightmare. And finally, let's talk about North Korea, where young women are living this nightmare right now. North Korea has been communist since 1948. Young North Korean women were promised free healthcare, free housing, free education, guaranteed jobs, and free childcare. But the reality is horrific. Young North Korean women are literally starving because the government controls all the food. They wait in lines for hours to buy basic necessities that may not even be available. Sounds like the free grocery stores that Mamdani is promising, right? You'll see. The free childcare exists, but it's terrible quality because the workers have no incentive to do good work. Young North Korean mothers worry constantly about their children not getting proper care. The guaranteed jobs do exist, but they're boring, meaningless positions that nobody wants, but everyone must take. Sounds like slavery to me. Young women can't choose their careers or start their own businesses. No. You thought you'd be able to do that? No, that's out. Most heartbreaking of all, if a young North Korean woman tries to escape to South Korea, her entire family gets sent into prison camps. Her children, her parents, her siblings, everyone pays the price for her decision to leave. That's crazy work. North Korea has nuclear weapons, but young mothers can't feed their babies. That's how broken their system is. The contrast with South Korea tells the whole story. South Korea is a free country where young women can start businesses, choose their careers, and keep their own money. North Korea is communist, where young women must depend on the government for everything. South Korean young women are amongst the most educated and successful in the world. North Korean communist young women are starving and imprisoned. Which one do you want? If you follow the communist idea, you're going to get the communist results. Section 6, the pattern, why it always fails. Now you might be thinking, JonE, these are all different countries. Maybe it was just bad leaders, or they just quite haven't followed communism the right way yet, right? All these previous examples of communism, they just didn't do it right yet. We're going to do it right. Right. But that's not true. This happened over and over again in country after country. China, Cuba, Vietnam, East Germany, Romania, Poland. Every single communist country failed in the same way. Here is the pattern. Young women are promised free stuff, equality, and security. They love these promises because they're struggling with real problems: expensive childcare, high rent, low wages. And also, they just kind of don't like the hierarchy of men being stronger and typically over them. Most women don't like that. They want the roles flipped. If women got in control of the world, men would be slaves, literal slaves to them. The government says, we'll solve all your problems. We'll give you free healthcare, free childcare, guaranteed jobs, and cheap housing, so you don't need a man anymore. Young women vote for these politicians because it sounds like they care, but they're fooling you. But then when the government has to pay for all this free stuff, where does the money come from? From taking it away from success. It comes from taking it away from successful people and businesses. When you take money away from successful people, they stop being successful. I don't understand why people don't get that. When they stop being successful, they stop creating jobs. When they stop creating jobs, there's no money to pay for the free stuff, people. Like, wake up. So the government ends up having to take even more money from even more people, and it's like a giant vacuum cleaner that never stops sucking. Eventually, there's no successful people left to take money from. The economy collapses. Young women who were promised free childcare end up with no jobs and no way to feed their children. Section 7. What Mamdani really wants. So let's talk about what Mamdani really wants to do in New York. He wants to control the housing market by freezing rents, right? And that sounds good until you realize that if landlords can't raise rents, they won't fix things. They'll stop building new apartments. They'll stop maintaining the ones they have. He wants to raise the minimum wage to $30, and that sounds great until you realize that small businesses can't afford to pay $30 an hour. They'll close down. Young women will lose their jobs instead of getting better ones. A lot of young women work in restaurants and service and things like that. If you only knew from a business owner's viewpoint how little and how small the profits are in restaurants and businesses like that. It's no room to pay people $30 who don't even care about really doing a good job. But you'll see. He wants to create city-owned grocery stores, which is ridiculous. That sounds helpful until you realize that the city doesn't know how to run grocery stores efficiently. They'll lose money, go bankrupt, and close down. Young women will have fewer places to buy food, not more. He wants to provide free childcare. That sounds wonderful until you realize that the government can't provide good health care because they don't have competition to push them to do better. Young women will get terrible childcare instead of good childcare. I guarantee you. Just like everything else the government provides, it's crappy, including the SNAP program. You see how they were able to pull that away from you and then give it back when they're ready. Pull it back, use it as leverage to get more benefits for whatever they're trying to pull. You don't want to be subject to the government's hand in your pocket or in your food, in your ability to eat or have childcare. You don't want to fall victim to this. The government always runs things poorly. So the conclusion, the choice. Young women who voted for Mamdani did it because they're struggling. And I get that. But that's because single people struggle in general. You need to be coupled up, familyed up, and then understand and respect each other and what each other brings to the table. When you get to this mentality that we have in our culture right now, where women say they don't need no man and men say, forget it, I'm going my own way. This is a recipe for communism, ultimately, because the women are going to reach for every little helping hand, and the men are going to be rejecting it, pulling the gender divide further apart, and nobody ever comes together. But who am I? You'll see. I understand why free childcare, cheap rent, and higher wages sound amazing to everybody, but I'm telling you, this is a trap. And the truth is, these promises have been made before in country after country. Every single time they destroy the very people that they're supposed to help. The poorest of the people will be the worst hit from these policies. I promise you that. The choice isn't between government control and suffering. The choice is between freedom and slavery, between prosperity and poverty, between hope and despair. Young women in Venezuela, the Soviet Union, Cambodia, North Korea learned this lesson too late. They trusted politicians who promised to take care of them, and they lost everything. That is the thing that you should pay attention to. Whenever politicians promise to take care of you, go the opposite direction. Go to the ones that are telling you that you can do it yourself, not the ones that's going to do it for you. But you'll see. Mamdani's policies will do the same thing to New York City that communist policies did to every other place that they've been tried. The question is, will young women of New York learn from history, or will they make the same mistakes that destroyed millions of lives around the world? Watching everyone, if you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.